And she survived the war and then came here to America. And I just have to tell you a very interesting immigrant story in relation to her and her sister. They came here in 1921. And all of you know, and there will be another story about Ellis Island, also with one of the generations, the branches of the family, I'm sorry. When you got off the boat and you got into Ellis Island, there were doctors who looked at you, and you had to walk a very, long flight of stairs, and so they could see how your breathing was. So in case you had a heart problem, they could tell by you walking up the steps. They checked your eyes for any eye disease. They checked your skin. They checked various things, and then if you didn't pass the medical exam, they sent you back, even though you had the ticket and you had someone waiting for you on the pier. Well, the stepmother looked at my Aunt Sarah, my mother's sister, and saw a little pimple on the side of her neck, which she figured the doctors would assume it's some kind of a disease. So she took a scarf, she wrapped it around my aunt's neck, and when the doctor looked at her, he took off the scarf, he sees the pimple, he says, "Who's the next of kin to her? She's not going onto the pier into America. She'll have to stay in the hospital at Ellis Island." And my mother's the next of kin because the stepmother is not next of kin. The stepmother and the stepchild went and met my grandfather, and my mother and my aunt now are in the hospital on Ellis Island. Now here you are, you have a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old not knowing the language, not knowing what's going to happen, and they bring my aunt into the hospital on Ellis Island, and my mother has to stay in dorms with other people who are waiting for their relatives to get cleared to go onto the mainland, so to speak. At any rate, my mother tells of the story that while she's waiting for them to clear my aunt to see that it's really nothing, it's not a disease or anything, they had to give them to eat. So they come down to eat, and of course you have all different nationalities there, and everybody eats differently and has different food, but they were giving them American food. The first thing they gave them was a banana with skin. Of course, a banana has skin. None of the immigrants knew what to do with this. So they took a bite, and of course with the skin, and they all simultaneously just spit it out and threw it away. Okay, then they gave them dry cereal, which they thought was straw. So she didn't eat the straw. Then they gave them spaghetti, which immediately, the people said, looked like worms. My mother said the 2 days or the 3 days that she was there was in a sense a nightmare because nobody explained anything. Nobody told them that they could eat it, that this was food to eat, who they were, what was happening to her sister. And in when was it, the opening of Ellis Island, babe? We took my mother there. 70, she was there 21 and 70 years later, 1991.
Mom was 90 or 91.
Yeah. And she was 70 years after her arrival in the country. They opened up Ellis Island. And through various ways, I got a ticket to get her at the opening ceremonies. Because I said, she was there 70 years ago, and it would be a wonderful experience to see what happened and where she stayed and where she ate and everything else. And as we got on the ferry, I tried to record her impressions of how does it feel now getting to Ellis Island, and what was it like when you came from Europe on the boat. And she then proceeds, and I have it on recording, and I'm not going to go into it, but it took her 2 weeks in steerage. And everybody in the very bottom of the boat, everybody was throwing up, everybody was sick, nobody could survive, they had hardly anything to eat. And when she looks here, what was it, the 20-minute trip to get to Ellis Island. But it was very not traumatic, but I suppose she didn't really express it. But we took her to the rooms where she slept. And the hospital has not been renovated, so they didn't permit visitors to go to the hospital where my aunt was held. And she took a look. The very large room was with the dining room, and the stairs right away hit her. Remembering that that's how they screened you as you went up the stairs. So my mother has all these vivid recollections, but of course we have nothing of that first generation. So again, as I said, it'll only be the women of the branches that will be able to tell you about the first generation coming to America. Now, Tina's grandmother was my mother's aunt. She's going to talk about Sylvia Olson. And are you going to mention Hunna? Yeah. Yeah, Van Leib had only one son, and Hunna's grandson is here. And is a great-grandson too, Sid? That's your nephew? No, I mean, he's here too, from Hunna's family. Okay, oh, so then it's Hunna's grandchildren. Okay, thank you. Great.